Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Digital Evangelism Podcast. This podcast was originally called What's Working Now. We wanted to rebrand it and call it instead Digital Evangelism. This is going to be a fantastic interview with Ryan Goodwin from Collierville, Tennessee. He's preaches for the East Shelby Church of Christ there. We're going to talk about YouTube videos, how to set up your YouTube videos, how to optimize your YouTube page. Very interesting conversation. Then we've got a new feature at the end, a lightning round where I ask him a series of questions. I guarantee you want to stick around for that conversation. Fantastic story, fantastic human being. Really enjoyed talking to Ryan, so I encourage you to watch this video. Good morning, everybody. We have Ryan Goodwin from the East Shelby Church of Christ in Collierville, Tennessee. Is that the right way to pronounce it, Ryan, or am I mispronouncing it?
I don't know. I'm not from the South, so I probably pronounce it wrong also.
Okay. Well, we'll pronounce it together, Collierville, Tennessee, and we'll just go with that. If anybody's watching from Collierville, we apologize. This is the Digital Evangelism Podcast. This is where we talk about, we interview somebody every week and talk to them about what they're doing in different churches. Normally preachers. We also talk to people who are experts in their respective field. Just try to get a feel for what they're doing in their local churches to kind of spread the gospel. And today we have Ryan Goodwin, who preaches, as I mentioned, for the East Shelby Church of Christ, but has mentioned or has preached for just about every other church in the United States. He is originally from Oregon, moved down to Abilene, moved also to, you said Arizona. You're also, where else did you preach? I know you're in Tennessee now. Is there any place I'm missing or?
No, I did an internship when I first started preaching in Little Rock, Arkansas.
That's right. Okay. That was the one I was thinking of. Abilene, I think, is where I first met you. Do you remember when we first met, Ryan? This is going to sound very bromantic, but I don't know if...
Yeah, we had a, I call it a lectureship, I guess. I think we had a gospel meeting canceled by accident that year. And so we needed to fill in the schedule. So I told the elders, well, why don't we invite, like, instead of one speaker, let's invite like 3 or 4 or 5 younger preachers, younger in their 20s and 30s. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, we had you, Jacob
Kirby was there.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to remember who else was there. We had a good group. It was Drew Nelson was there. Yeah, we had a good group of guys come out. I really enjoyed having all you guys come out.
Yeah, that was a fun week. I didn't realize that we were all fill-ins, but I appreciate the invitation to come out there regardless. No, that was actually the second time that we met, which that was a fun week, by the way. I don't want to just pass right by.
Josh Kirby was there also, right? Josh Kirby was there.
Yeah, I think he got the Sunday morning spot. I did the Bible class, and I think Jacob Hudgens did the Sunday evening class. The first time that we met was at a Rangers game. I don't know if you remember, Terry Slack had a kind of this preacher's baseball game at the Ranger Stadium. I think his wife worked for, somebody that had one of those big suites. So we actually hung out on the patio of that and talked while watching the Rangers probably lose. I can't remember what the score was that night, but that was actually the first
one. I think they won.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that would have been 2010, 2011. So they might have won. Yeah. That was that brief window of time when they were actually good. But yeah, I think that was the first time that we met. And then it wasn't long after that we hung out there in Abilene. That's where he took us on a tour of ACU and showed me the world's largest Bible, which I still think is pretty cool to this day. So we haven't hung out a whole lot. I know that you went to Abilene, then you went to Phoenix. Now you're in East Collierville, which, by the way, I've actually been to your church or to East Shelby a long time ago. And the reason that it sticks out in my mind is I'm pretty sure y'all have an elevator in your building. Do you?
Yeah, we're one of those very progressive churches.
Yes.
We have a cupola on the top of the building and an elevator inside.
Yeah, that elevator is going to get you in trouble. If you put in an escalator, then people start complaining. But no, I remember walking into the lobby. This was a long time ago, probably 10, 12 years ago. I remember walking in and seeing that elevator and being like, we only have one floor, but I want one of those someday. That's how you know you've hit the big time, is when you have an elevator in your building. So I want to ask you first and foremost before we get going, because I want to really spend most of our time talking this morning about your YouTube series. I know you have a lot of time, or you've devoted a lot of time to building out a series on YouTube. But I want to ask you before that, I try to ask everybody this: how did you get into preaching? What was there some moment that you decided that's what you wanted to do? Was it something you fell into? Kind of walk us through that story of how you started.
Well, I've always enjoyed the public speaking aspect of preaching. And even when I was a teenager, I would do Wednesday night invitations and fill in preaching every now and then. So I always had it kind of in the back of my mind that I would enjoy preaching as a vocation. But in high school, I was a big time band geek. Like I was such a band geek. You will not even believe the instrument that I played. I played the bassoon.
I actually, when you said that, I was thinking bassoon, to be honest with you.
Yeah, like that's
Yeah.
it's like bassoon, and the only geekier instrument is oboe. So I'm sorry for all my double reed brothers and sisters out there, but sorry. That's how much of a band geek I was.
Yeah.
And I thought I wanted to be a band director, actually, like a high school or middle school band director. So I attended the University of Oregon on a music scholarship, and I was a music major, and I was studying jazz and classical music and stringed instruments. And but after a year of doing music for 10 hours a day, when something goes from being like your fun hobby to being 10 hours a day a job, you realize pretty quickly that that's not something you can do for a living. Like if you can't do it in college and love it and enjoy it and have a passion for it, you're probably not going to spend the next 35 years of your life doing it and enjoying it. And I just knew, like, I could not do this. I can't do that. So I don't know. I called my dad one day. It was about halfway through the school year, and I said, "Dad, it's just not really working. I think I want to be a preacher." And he discouraged me. Now, for a good reason. He always told me, if you're going to be a preacher, do it for the right reasons, not because you're lazy and you just think it would be an easy job to do. And so he purposefully discouraged me from preaching because he wanted to make sure that if I was going to do it, I would really own it and take responsibility and do it for the right reasons. So he said all the common lines. Well, it's not going to pay very well. You're probably going to have to move around a lot. You're not going to get to take your pick of wherever you want to live. You're just going to have to go where the gospel takes you. Wherever God's will sends you, that's where you're going to live. And it's not always going to be glamorous. You're not always going to have a lot of money. And so in spite of all of that, I pressed on. And when I got home from that first year of college, I transferred to Portland State University and lived with my parents in Beaverton, Oregon. And so I did the next 3 years of college at Portland State University. I don't own that, though. I'm a Ducks fan, and when people ask me where I went to college, I always start with University of Oregon. Go Ducks. I don't really own the Portland State University.
I don't see a Portland State University football helmet behind you or anything, so I think we can all tell where your allegiance is.
My office is decorated in Oregon Duck stuff. I've got the Sports Illustrated Oregon Duck covers up there. Terry Francis used to be in this office, and he had all this Tennessee Volunteers junk all over the walls. We cleaned that up pretty quickly and replaced it with the green and yellow.
Well, I'm sure there's people from Oregon watching this right now that are cheering you on, but we probably lost some viewership from Tennessee from that. But to each their own. I'm with you on that. Well, that's cool. I knew that you had preached. I didn't know that you were in band before that. I actually was a band geek myself. My wife went to Texas Tech initially on a music scholarship. She became a music teacher for a while. But I know from experience that bassoon players do not do marching band. So did you play any other instruments or?
No, I was the full range of it. Okay. I was actually a bass player. I played upright, the string bass, and I also played bass in the jazz band. Played bass in the orchestra. And I even 1 year I did do the marching band 1 year. I was a bass player in the pit orchestra, for the marching band. So I was on the sideline, and it was fine. I didn't have to wear the hat. That was the nice thing. I didn't have to wear the big tall Abraham Lincoln marching band hat.
The plume. The plume is what that thing is up on top. I don't know what the actual hat is called. I forgot about that, but that's where the money's at. Marching band. That's where I had the most fun. I did that in jazz band, so I'm glad to know we got that in common. The advice that your dad gave you sounds a lot like the advice that I got, and I think a lot of other people get too, which is if you can do anything else besides preaching, do it. And there are certainly people in our profession, like a lot of professions, that are in it for the wrong reasons. But I think it's pretty evident from you, and like I said, I've watched your stuff for a long time. We don't interact very much personally, but I've watched your stuff in years past, and I know that you're very passionate about the gospel. And so I know whenever this quarantine happened and things started clamping down, I noticed that you kind of transitioned doing a lot of things online. Your church, or the East Shelby church, is a lot like Hillside where I'm at, where I think you stopped having services in person for a period of time, so you did virtual services. But you also did something else. You did start doing YouTube series, and I think your YouTube series covered, chapter by chapter, or passage studies on Colossians. I think you either just finished Ecclesiastes, which if I remember right, I remember you saying that was your favorite book, was Ecclesiastes. Is that right? Or
my favorite Old Testament book.
Okay.
Yeah. I like Ecclesiastes just because of its philosophical nature.
Right.
It asks a lot of questions that I think people ask. What's the meaning? What's the point of it all?
Right.
Why? I think it just asks the right questions. That's why I like Ecclesiastes so much.
Yeah. I remember having one person tell me that he thought Ecclesiastes was probably the most, I don't know if passive is the right word, but the most understated evangelistic book in the entire Bible. And the more I read it, the more I kind of come around to that same idea that Ecclesiastes, as you mentioned, answers the big questions. And if you can get people to answering the big questions, you naturally can lead them to the gospel. And so I'm right there with you. We actually just covered a section on Ecclesiastes here, and it was by far one of my favorite studies. But what was it that made you want to start doing YouTube series? Because I know, like most preachers, I've talked to several preachers during this quarantine. A lot of them, their work not just increased a little bit during quarantine, but increased exponentially. So all of a sudden you're responsible for doing Zoom Bible classes. You're responsible for doing any kind of Bible classes that you did with individuals. You're now doing it online. So why did you decide to also start tackling a series, a weekly series on YouTube?
It's partly just embracing the reality of our time.
Mm-hmm.
For being someone who's only 36, I'll be 37 in a couple months here, but I'm really not that tech savvy. Mm-hmm. And I think I have kind of an old-fashioned approach on a psychological level to most things.
Mm-hmm.
I like tangible things, not digital, virtual things. But I also know I need to get out of my comfort zone and live in the real world. And the real world tends to happen a lot in a virtual realm.
Yeah.
So if we're going to reach people with the gospel, we have to reach them where they are. And people exist in the virtual realm. So we need to go to the virtual realm and reach them. Yeah. People are also very visual today. I know that I understand that podcasting, just pure audio podcasting, is very, very popular. And so I get that. So I know that people aren't just visual, but they are very visual creatures in this day and age. And so it was a very natural thing to move from, it's a very natural evolution to go from the chalkboard to the felt board to the overhead projector to the PowerPoint projector to now integrating, everything in a digital sense into our work as preachers and evangelists.
Bed sheets are a part of that progression.
Well, I'll tell you what, my grandpa was always on the cutting edge of technology. My grandpa, his name was Bill Fain. He preached in Texas, and then he was up in Oregon and Washington for years and years and years up there. Mm-hmm. And he was always on the forefront of technology. And if he was alive today, he'd be on YouTube. He would be fully embracing technology. But he was also the master of the felt board sermon. Like, he had these felt board arrangements that were all just just laid out pure and logic, and it's beautiful to behold. But I know I have to get out of my comfort zone and reach people where they are. Yeah. So I want to include visual aids. I want to include pictures, and I want it to look slick and semi-professional and clean, and I want it to look very natural and organic as well.
Right.
And so we can talk about that in a few minutes when you want to ask specific questions about the hardware and the software and how I utilize it. But I think if you can do anything to just make it look clean and precise and at least semi-professional, like, to me, that's a really important thing, because you're reaching people.
Yeah.
And in the first 30 seconds to a minute of a video, people are either going to keep watching or they're going to move on to something else. So you have to present something that's going to just grab the attention right away in a clean and professional manner. Yeah, I don't know if that's the question that you asked. I think I might have followed a rabbit trail at some point. Lost track of where I was.
I think I'm with you. I think everybody else is with you too. That actually answered a couple of questions. I do want to get back around to the hardware and the software setup, because I think for a lot of people, the biggest hang-up, at least the biggest hang-up people that I talked to when all this started, was not the idea of being in front of people. It was the idea of being in front of a computer screen. Because, when you're standing in front of an auditorium, you can kind of read the room, you can walk around and you can see how people are responding. but it's very different to do a Bible study or to do a sermon in front of just a video camera, because you don't have that type of visual feedback. And I think there's a lot of that. I don't want to say stage fright for a lot of preachers, but I appreciate what you said about pushing through that, because you're exactly right. That's where a lot of people are. You know, I've seen the view count on your videos on YouTube, and you're getting pretty healthy views. I mean, so people are in fact watching what you're doing. How did you first go about your setup? Because as you mentioned, you know, you wanted it to look professional at the beginning. Did you invest a lot of money right at the outset, or did you just kind of go with your iPhone and go after it? Or what would your first few videos look like?
I want to get to that in just a minute, but I want to add a point here that I think needs to be said is, if you continue to evolve with technology, it is easier to stay with the times. Like, you know, like digging your heels in and staying in 2005 or 2010 or whatever.
Right.
The longer you dig your heels in, the harder it is to stay relevant with technology when the time comes. Right. So, you know, for me, the evolution went this way. When I moved to Phoenix and preached for the Monte Vista Church of Christ, one of our deacons, Brian Sheely, and I give him so much credit. He opened my eyes up. He's a very tech savvy person. Brian Sheely has helped a lot of churches over the years get their technology up to date. He even has a package that if you reach out to him through the Monte Vista website, he's got like a pre-packaged set of documents that he'll email you. How do you set up for live streaming? How do you set up for video recording? What's the hardware that they use? And so he's a great resource. You know, we started doing the radio program at Monte Vista. And it was a pre-recorded 27-minute, you know, we were recorded with GarageBand on an iMac. And it was an MP3 file that we would then send to the radio station. It was an AM radio station, but we actually got really good traction with that, and had Bible studies from it, and people reaching out, and, you know, phone calls and messages and that sort of thing. And so I think doing that for 5 years, I was able to sit in front of a computer with a microphone and record a 27-minute radio program with no one else in the room, and it be a good product. Yeah. And then that turned into, he had been wanting video stuff for a long time. And so his idea was, can we record like 5-minute videos, like just little 5-minute videos that we can then share on Facebook and put on our YouTube channel. And that became the step-by-step series of videos. And you can still go to Monte Vista's YouTube channel and see their step-by-step video series. And they're just like little 5 to 8 minute videos that just cover a topic of just general interest for people. So like for me, the evolution was, could I be comfortable just recording with a microphone, doing a radio program, which turned into, can I be comfortable with Brian Sheely with a camera recording a 5-minute video, which means, can I be comfortable now recording 20 to 35-minute Bible studies? Can I be comfortable doing a Zoom Bible study live? So my point is, if you get with the times with technology and then you continue to evolve with it and just stay comfortable with what is available out there, you're going to have a much easier time staying relevant. Now, understand, the message is always relevant, but just staying relevant as far as your use of technology. So getting back to the question that you actually asked, when I got here to East Shelby, you know, I decided to just go with a very basic setup. You know, we're not spending thousands and thousands of dollars on all this. The camera that I use is a Logitech camera that you can find at Target or Walmart for about 70 to 80 bucks. Just depending on if you can find it on sale. And so you can go to a Target or a Walmart or a Best Buy and find a decent camera. It's a Logitech brand, but there's several other brands that you can use. And, you know, it records in 1080p. So you've got high definition. You've got software that comes with it, right? So you get the camera, you install the Logitech software, super easy to use. You hit record and start recording. Built into the software, you actually have the ability to have picture-in-picture. So if you wanted to, you could have like PowerPoint slides like up here in the corner of the screen. Yeah, or you can do, you know, you can split it up in half and have your face on this side and PowerPoint slides over here. So that camera comes with the software that you need.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just plug and play.
Yeah.
The audio that I use, I bought a snowball. It's just a blue snowball.
Mm-hmm.
Very easy. It's connected by USB.
Yeah.
So if you've got a USB port on the side of your computer, or if you're using like a MacBook Pro, mm-hmm. and you've got just a little conversion thing that plugs into your port and has all the USB ports on it, it's again just plug and play.
Yeah.
But it's important. I'm a big believer in using, at least on a basic level, some kind of technology that's specialized.
Right.
Like your microphone on a computer is fine.
Yeah.
But it's just the recording quality is not going to be the same.
Right.
Your camera that's built in on your MacBook is fine. Mm-hmm. But again, it's just not going to be the same level of quality. So
that's actually the one I'm using. Yeah.
So for $50, okay, $50 for a mic, and $80 for a camera, mm-hmm. you got your setup right there.
Yeah.
For less than $200, you have something that it's not like professional quality, but it is a step up from just what's built in on your computer.
Yeah.
So I recommend that. That's not a huge investment. And I think, ask your elders for your congregation, ask them, hey, this is not a huge investment. Would it be okay if I bought some of this hardware to help us out with that?
Yeah. I think that's a good point to make. And that's something that we try to reiterate oftentimes when we talk to people is you don't need a whole bunch of material, because I think that's what people think about. They think, oh, I need to have a booth that's set up. And I remember, walking in to Dallin Road Church of Christ, they had something for young preachers every year called boot camp. And I don't know if I was supposed to or not, but I shimmied up the ladder to go into their sound booth. And I was blown away by this entire room of monitors and stuff. And understand that they're building, seats 400 or 500 people. So they're very much in need of that. But you don't need that much to get started. And I appreciate what you said about, especially the cost breakdown of saying that's very accessible, because most people don't think of that. And, if you need the camera, you need the microphone, but you mentioned the software too. We've talked to a lot of people about using OBS, that open broadcaster software, but yours that's built in does essentially the same thing. And if it's plug and play, it's literally just a matter of recording it and then uploading it to YouTube. And, people don't think about that. You're exactly right. It's kind of this hesitation to move into it because of this ghost that it's too expensive. So I appreciate you making that point. I also appreciate the point you made about how if you don't get with the times now, it's going to be harder as you go on. And I agree with you. The gospel is always going to be relevant, but we have to meet people where they're at. And I've noticed on your page, the East Shelby, Church of Christ page, and I don't know if you have a hidden one somewhere for your Star Trek fan fiction, but your East Shelby YouTube page, you have close to 300 subscribers, which is great for a congregation, especially if you've only been, broadcasting for a few months at this point. Yeah. Was there any thought into optimizing your page itself, or did you just kind of go up there and do what you thought was best?
Well, it's important if you are going to open up a YouTube channel, and I recommend it because it's very accessible. We wrestled with, do we do Facebook Live? Do we do YouTube? Do we do, there's other platforms as well. There's other websites that you can use.
Right.
We chose YouTube just because it's very accessible. You don't have to have a Facebook account.
Yeah.
Right. That was our issue with Facebook Live, and I don't have any problem. It's a good platform. But the limitation that we kind of wrestled with was, if you're going to broadcast things on Facebook, you have to be on Facebook to access that. But anybody with an internet browser can go to YouTube and go to a channel. Yeah. So that was what we chose to do. And we use YouTube Live for our live streaming of our Sunday worship service. Mm-hmm. And so it was just very easy for us. We have a YouTube channel. You can do your live streaming, and then you can record stuff and have it broadcast, and then just share the link on Facebook, which is what we tend to do. So to maximize your YouTube channel, tell your congregation, make an announcement, make it very clear. Hey, we are opening up a YouTube channel, and the best thing that you can do as members of this church is go there today, right there on your smartphone, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Because the more subscribers you have, the more public the channel is. And there's all these algorithms. I don't understand it, but there's algorithms in a supercomputer somewhere out in the middle of the New Mexico desert that YouTube uses, right? That determines what pages are going to show up when you search for things. So
Mhm.
when you search for East Shelby, what's going to be the first thing that pops up? Well, if
Mhm.
you've got 300 or 500 or 1,000 subscribers,
Mhm.
well, it's more likely that your videos and your channel are going to show up on searches. And if somebody searches for, if someone just searches YouTube for Church of Christ videos or Church of Christ sermons,
Yeah.
right? Where in that search is your congregation going to appear?
Right.
And so if you have a congregation of 100 members or 200 members, just ask them,
Yeah.
today, get on your smartphone today and please subscribe to our YouTube channel
Mhm.
because it promotes it. So
Yeah.
that's what we did. And we started with, I think in the first day, we had over 100 of our members subscribe.
Yeah.
The other thing too is that I believe, and I might be wrong about this, I believe the threshold is 100 subscribers. But
Mhm.
if you get 100 subscribers on your YouTube channel, you get an exclusive YouTube I don't know what you
Right.
call it, a website name, right? So instead of youtube.com/G34 slash
Yeah.
HH2, right? You get youtube.com/East Shelby.
Right.
And so that was important for us is if we can like break this threshold of subscribers, we get a very clean looking,
Right.
very, very clean looking website name. So you just type youtube.com/East Shelby.
Mhm.
Very easy, very straightforward. So that's another thing is just get that subscriber count up, and
Mhm.
it does make things easier for you
Yeah.
to promote the page.
That's true. A lot of people, wrestle with whether or not to use YouTube or Vimeo for hosting their sermons. And you talked about more in terms of live stream. And I know Vimeo can do live stream when it comes to, services or anything like that. But YouTube, you nailed it. YouTube is more of a social channel. And the more impact that you can have from people, especially from your core group of people, the more it's going to appear in search rankings. And there are keywords and tags and stuff like that that you can use to optimize it. But what YouTube is really looking at is what you spoke to is the idea of proof. We want to make sure these are videos that people are actually watching. And so if you've got people sharing it inside your network, that's going to play a huge part in boosting that YouTube channel. So yeah, that's a pretty solid point. Even, the other stuff, comes with time and it comes with, probably delving more into it, but y'all are nailing it so far and it looks fantastic. One of the things that I've noticed when you shoot your videos is you move around quite a bit. I know you mainly position it inside of the church building. Right now, I'm talking to you while you're in your office. Was there thought to your specific backdrop? You mentioned earlier my wife's crafting supplies behind me, which I think actually adds to the casual ambiance of the setting. But was there any thought given to I'm going to be here, I'm going to be in a pulpit? Because I know some people love standing in the pulpit. Some people love having their books behind them. Other people want to be more casual. Was there thought given to that, or are you just kind of,
Yeah,
experimenting?
there was a lot of thought behind it, and I didn't mean to be critical. I was just being silly
No,
with you about
that's all right.
crafting supplies in the
This was
background.
intentional.
Yeah.
I craft sometimes too.
Well, I don't record in my office. Very infrequently do I record in the office because, I don't want to sound critical. Okay. I don't want to sound like I'm some high and mighty person who knows how to do it best, but I felt like I could stand out. When you go through Facebook and you see other preachers, there are a lot of preachers that record in their office.
Right.
And so it's a very typical scene, right? It's you got the preacher, he's at his desk, he's got his books in the background, which is exactly what this is right now.
Yeah.
And I felt like, is there just something little that I can do? Something that's just very easy, very simple, that I can do that when you see my video just kind of,
Yeah.
stands out. It kind of looks a little bit different.
Hmm.
So that was part of it. But the biggest reason why I move around the church building is um, I felt like during the coronavirus pandemic and the isolation that everybody's feeling, like we have been removed from the places that we hold very dear to us. And place is very important to people.
Right.
Place, whether it's the parks where you take your children, the restaurants where you take your loved ones on a date, right? Um, you Going out into the community, being in public spaces,
Hmm.
and church buildings. Now, church buildings, they're just buildings, right? It's not the temple. I get that. And so I don't believe the church building is more special in some deep spiritual sense. Like I'm not equating it with Solomon's temple, but place holds very special value for people.
Right.
And until the coronavirus, Christians would spend hours and hours at this place.
Right.
This is the place where, more than anywhere else, where we're developing friendships and really, really deep relationships with people. This is the place where we meet the newborn babies in our congregation. This is the place where multi-generational families are coming together, and you see grandbabies sitting on their grandparents' laps. This is a place where we've cried together and laughed together. This is a place, in a lot of church buildings, it's a place where you helped build it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You were there moving pews into the auditorium. You were there painting rooms. Like, we have blood, sweat, and tears invested in these places.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought it'd be really important, like during a time where we don't get to be in this place,
Mm-hmm.
I intentionally moved around the church building.
Mm-hmm.
So that when people watched those videos, they felt a connection to, like,
Right.
that's our church building.
Yeah.
That's our place. And so whether it's a hallway or a classroom or a place in the auditorium or wherever it is, like, people recognize, like, that's our place. That's a special place to us.
Right.
So I felt like it was really important to move around our church building to give, all these different viewpoints of this pretty special place to our congregation.
Yeah, that's a good point. I haven't actually thought about that, but that's a good point about thinking about, the spaces that people are familiar with, especially in times right now. I have yet to see you do a video in front of the elevator, but I assume that that's going to be coming at some point in the future. But I'm
running out of places to record.
Well, then shoot inside the elevator if you can. But no, I think that's a really powerful point. I know whenever we came back, for services at Hillside for the first time, it was like, I had been there every week recording services and whatnot. So it wasn't necessarily new to me, but it just seemed like one big reunion. I mentioned it at the time. It felt like, school resuming after summer was over, everybody coming back and seeing each other and talking. And there's something, as you mentioned, there's something about the place where all that happens that's special to people. So I think that's a really good point. I want to speak real quick to your series. I know we're running kind of short on time, but I want to speak to your series real quick. As I mentioned earlier, you spoke on Colossians, you spoke on Ecclesiastes. I have a couple of questions about that. Number one, what was it that made you choose those two, or was that just, what you wanted to speak on and so you did? And number two, how did you decide what was the appropriate length? Because there's a lot of buzz in the world around about people, you need to keep it, 30 minutes or more. You need to keep it less than 5 minutes. And people have different opinions about that. So how did the digital format of your Bible studies impact your length of, your length of your topic? Or did you just set it aside I'm going to cover these 6 verses and then just go as long as I can?
Well, I asked other people who were doing videos and podcasts. So I kind of gathered some information from other sources, and based on what I can tell, and I may be wrong about this because I don't listen to a ton of podcasts, but based on what I can tell, the majority of podcasts are kind of in a 28 to 40 minute range.
Right.
Would you agree that that's fairly normal for most, even secular, right? Non-religious podcasts tend to be 28 to about 40 minutes long. So I thought if I could stay around 30 minutes, and sometimes I go up to 35. Mm-hmm. Some of the videos, I think I've done 36, 37 minutes every now and then, but I really try hard not to break 35 minutes. And I also try to stay above 25 minutes. Because I think if you're going to sit down and listen to something, you have to give people some substance.
Right.
And in 25 minutes, you can do that. 25 to 35 minutes seems to be a really good range. That's also where I try to keep my sermons. Yeah. If I go up to 38 minutes in a sermon, I feel like I've gone long and I've wasted people's time. If I go 23 minutes in a sermon, I feel like I didn't do justice to the subject.
Right.
Now that's not true of everybody. There are preachers that can preach for 40 minutes and it's awesome. Yeah. And there are preachers that can preach for 21 minutes and it's awesome.
Yeah.
But that's not me. I can't do that. So 25, 28, 32, right? That's kind of like my sweet spot for sermons and for Bible classes. So that was what contributed partly to that. I really wanted to stay in that 28 to 35 minute range for my classes. I chose Colossians because it's very accessible. It's also a very positive book.
Yeah,
it's a book where he has a lot of good things to say to the Colossian congregation. It's a very practical book. It's also a very evangelistic book. So it would be something good for not just people in our congregation who are saved, but also for people that you might try to reach with that video.
Right.
So that's why I chose Colossians. And it's fairly short. You can sit down and read through Colossians in like 18
Mm-hmm.
or 20 minutes, probably.
Yeah.
And once I was done with Colossians, I wanted to go Old Testament, just kind of switch it up. And again, just keeping in mind what is good for our members, what is good for evangelistic purposes. And Ecclesiastes is very accessible, very philosophical. It has very general relevance for people. So I guess I didn't put a ton of thought into it, but that's sort of the thinking that went behind that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Do you have plans to continue that post-quarantine when everything goes back to normal, or is this kind of not asking you to commit to anything, but do you envision yourself doing this 5 years from now, or more of a temporary?
Yeah. Well, I'm actually going to have a meeting with our elders tonight via Zoom. And we're going to talk about some of the things. Well, at least I anticipate that we're going to talk about what some of our plans are moving forward. We're trying to get things to where they're more normal.
Yeah.
We've decided the elders have decided. I need to, put the credit where it belongs. Our elders made the decision that for the time being, we're going to continue doing our adult classes as a Zoom format. Just because it's really hard to put people in confined spaces, in classrooms,
especially
and
kids.
expect them to social distance.
Yeah.
We've opened up our auditorium for Sunday worship services because we can fit. I think our capacity is like 450 or something like that. And so Shelby County has given us a certain number, and we're allowed to have 212 in our auditorium legally. So, we've told our membership, as long as it's not 212 or more, we're encouraging our members now to, come back and worship with us. And, for us, a normal Sunday before the coronavirus would have been 260 to, 290, perhaps up to 300. So if we can get 200 in here, that starts to feel a little bit more normal.
Yeah.
But, we've had like 60 to 90 most Sundays now. And I'll tell you what, like even 90 people in an auditorium for 400 feels really like sparse.
Yeah. We have our fire code is 175 and we run about 120 on an average Sunday, and we're hitting about 60 right now. And it's starting to feel, we're putting out chairs just so people can stay away from each other, which is the opposite of what you want to do normally. But
yeah, I thought about that the other day too. Like looking around the auditorium, we probably had about 90 or so this last Sunday. And looking around, my pragmatic brain was going like, what we should do next Sunday is we should cut off the two side columns and have everyone sit in the two middle columns. But then I thought, no, that's not what we need to be doing.
That defeats the whole purpose of what we're doing.
Yeah. Actually, what we did do when we opened it back up for in-person worship services, what we did is we taped off every other row in the auditorium so that people are forced to sit, every other row. So it keeps the 6 feet, not just 6 feet to the sides, but 6 feet front to back as well. And I thought that was a really good idea because it was my idea.
Nice. Yeah, we did that. We just used caution tape for our pews, so it looks like the church building is one big crime scene.
Yeah.
But that's super effective. Well, I appreciate you spending time with me. We're going to do something new with this one. We haven't done it with anybody else, so you're officially the guinea pig. So no pressure, but if it goes bad, then we'll never do it again. So don't ruin it for everybody else. But I want to do a lightning round. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. I'm not going to talk super fast, more than normal, but you just give me the first response. Some of them will be biblically related. Some of them will not be. We'll start with the first one, which is, what is the Bible character that you relate to the most?
Oh, Paul the Apostle.
I really thought you were going to say Peter. Everybody says Peter.
Well, Peter, I relate to Peter because he stuck his foot in his mouth a lot. Yeah. And like the book of Proverbs says, in an abundance of words, folly is bound to happen. So I do relate to Peter in that sense, but I relate to Paul in the sense of I really feel like on a very deep level, his regret for the sins of his past.
Yeah.
And how he he basically picked that up. It picked up his life, laid it at the altar of Jesus, and said, "Listen, I was terrible. Yeah. I did horrible things." It's all 1 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 12 and onward. But I really relate to that because there's a lot of things from my past that I feel like I could regret if I wanted to indulge in self-pity.
Yeah.
But he didn't, so I'm not going to. So I relate to Paul a lot.
That's a good answer. Yeah, that's a good point too. Is there one verse that has helped you through difficult times more than any other?
Ooh, wow. You should have told me to prepare for that one.
I'm sorry.
That's really tough. Well, in the Gospel of John, it said Jesus wept, and I've been doing a lot of that lately.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
We've been going through. We started a series on the Gospel of John. Actually, we've got a 20-somethings class that I'm teaching, and I'm not a 20-something. I'm way past that at this point. But I think there's a verse there in John chapter 1 and verse 5 that says, "And the light shines in the darkness, but the darkness did not comprehend it." What I like about that verse is it is, on the one hand, extremely hopeful because the light does shine, and the light's always going to shine. You can't defeat it. The light's always there. But there's a very pragmatic side to that as well, that if the darkness doesn't feel like comprehending it, it's not going to.
Yeah.
And so the light is always there, but there's going to be people that they're dark and they don't want to. And John chapter 3, after the whole Nicodemus scene, Jesus even makes that point in John chapter 3 that the reason why people don't like the light is because the light shines on them and exposes their evil. And people prefer to be evil instead of good.
Yeah.
And so that verse really speaks to me in this time because the light is there and it's accessible and it's there for everybody. But let's not be naive and expect that everybody out there is going to want the light. People love the darkness, and they're going to want to stay in darkness. And I can't get naive about that, and I can't get discouraged about that. Just have to be the light.
Yeah, good point. What is describe for us your morning routine?
Coffee. Always coffee. Every single day, coffee. I get up before my wife. She's a sleeper. She loves to sleep in. That's just how it's always been. She's also a type 1 diabetic, so she needs more rest. We go to bed at the same time, but she likes to have at least an hour more of sleep than I do. So I get up with the kids every day. When it's the school year, we send our kids to public school. We're not homeschoolers. I'm not judging or anything. That's not a comment on that, but I'm the one who gets up with the kids. I get them dressed, get their breakfast, get their lunches made, and then send them out the door and wave bye-bye as they get on the school bus. And then I come back in after sending the kids to school, and I get my cup of coffee ready, and I sit down with a bowl of high-fiber cereal with a cup of coffee, and I read the news. Like, that's my routine is I go, and by the way, here's my personal tip. For all the peoples out there that like the news, read the full spectrum of news. I go to foxnews.com and I read their news. Then I go to CNN.com and I read their news. And somewhere in the middle, you're gonna find truth somewhere in the middle of those two ends of the spectrum. So it's a cup of coffee, high fiber cereal, and both ends of the spectrum with news. Like, that's my routine.
That sounds good. Yeah. Recently, I've become more. I don't know if you've read The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, but
I've heard of it. Yes, I've heard of it, and I know that there's a lot of preachers out there that really are big proponents of that.
It's not a very good book, but it establishes the principle of the way that you spend your mornings. It kind of dictates how you spend your day. So that's why I wanted to ask that.
Well, that's why I take the fiber.
Yeah. Start your day off.
This is officially too much information. You know more about Ryan Goodwin than you ever wanted to.
Yeah. I won't ask you which fiber cereal because that may be too much information, but we'll keep this for all audiences. What tip do you have for evangelism?
You mean like personal, like in person?
Yeah, personal, public, or anything. Yeah.
Be friendly.
Friendly.
More than anything else, just be really nice.
Yeah.
Like whenever we watch a TV show or a sitcom or anything like that, I always identify with the nice character.
Yeah.
I really do believe that nice guys finish first.
Yeah.
Like we're not out there in the front. The nice guy is never going to be the one that has all the public attention. I don't know if nice guys ever will become president, but like I'm a big believer in just being nice. And if you can be nice and just be really, really friendly with people, that's my biggest tip is just be super nice.
Yeah.
Be super nice with people.
Yeah, that's good. Which one is better, Chick-fil-A or Taco Bell?
Oh, Chick-fil-A. Yeah, Chick-fil-A by far.
That is
I don't know. That's a silly question.
no.
That's ridiculous.
Well, it is
Chick-fil-A
silly.
all the way.
It
And
is
strawberry milkshake at Chick-fil-A. Strawberry milkshake
Uh-huh.
is one of the best things that you can put in your mouth. And also the superfood side salad.
Uh-huh.
I'm telling you,
Yeah.
while we're on the subject of fiber, like the superfood side salad, like you think, oh, a kale salad, blah, like don't knock kale. That superfood side salad is phenomenal at Chick-fil-A.
I bet your digestive habits are just in peak condition by this point, just from the little I know about from this lightning round.
And I'm also a runner. Also, I'm an avid runner. So
yeah. Every answer you gave, though, everything from Taco Bell is better than anything that you just mentioned, though. So your answer was
no, at Taco Bell, like I have never felt at Taco Bell, I have never felt that something was made with love at Taco Bell.
You haven't gone to the Taco Bell in Greenville. That's all I'm saying.
Listen, when I go to Taco Bell, the impression that I get at Taco Bell is I am having something that is only on the very cusp of the definition of meat being slathered, right? Being slathered onto a piece of paper hatefully. Yeah. I can taste the spite in Taco Bell food.
Angry food prep, I think is what
it's angry food prep. And also, I have never once in my life gone to a Taco Bell drive-thru and driven away with what I ordered. Ever.
That's not
I think it's a Taco Bell policy. Yeah. There's a big sign on the front that says, make sure that people leave unhappy. That's a policy. Big sign out there at Taco Bell.
We should have had this lightning round at the beginning. This would have been a much shorter interview because my anger. Talk about angry food prep. This can be angry interview. All right, one more question. What one thing do you wish people knew about preachers?
What one thing that I wish people knew about preachers?
Either preachers or the life of a preacher or preaching as an occupation, any of those things.
That we have to be allowed to express our sense of adventure every now and then. We are not monks cloistered somewhere. We didn't take a vow of poverty. We don't sit there and meditate all day. Preachers want to go on vacation and ride roller coasters and join an eating competition and run a marathon. And, we want to get out there and have adventures and just kind of express, the term wild side, of course, has a lot of negative connotations. Like, I'm not saying that every preacher wants to go out and like get a tattoo or something like that. Like, so wild side has a negative connotation. So I don't know if that's the right term for it, but preachers need to feel like we can just be normal folk.
Yeah.
And you like go home and watch a TV show and put our feet up and just be a normal person.
Yeah.
And be treated like a normal person as well. And not be kept at arm's length by folks. Yeah. So I guess that's one thing. And I've been very fortunate. I think I've been treated really well over the years by a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I do think that maybe that mentality still persists in some churches, that the preacher he's kind of set apart from everybody.
Yeah.
And
human.
Yeah, not fully human, I guess.
Yeah.
And so, when a preacher gets on a podcast and a preacher talks about, a preacher makes a joke about having his fiber in the morning. Like, do we accept that, like, that's like, okay, for lack of a better term, like every now and then a preacher's going to tell a fart joke. Like, is that something that we're okay accepting, that preachers are real human beings that have a sense of humor and have adventures that they want to go on and vacations they want to go on, and that we've got to be able to express that we're fun and that we I don't know, maybe I'm rambling a little bit because that question kind of caught me off guard.
Yeah, well, that's what the lightning round is designed to do.
I feel completely struck by it now.
No. Well, I agree with you. I know I've been very blessed in my life to not have, any bad scenarios, but I do agree that people tend to think of preachers in one-dimensional terms. So it's good to think about people as preachers as well-rounded individuals that don't just sit there and read their Bible all day. They also read, other books that are, crime fiction novels and whatever, or they go ride roller coasters, or, they have a vacation house somewhere. I think it's important to point stuff like that out. No preacher that I know has a vacation house, but I'm sure they're out there somewhere. I appreciate you spending time with me. I know this went a little bit beyond what I promised you would be, but I've really enjoyed the conversation.
It does not bother me at all. Doesn't bother me at all.
Well, I've enjoyed it a lot. I want to give you the last word and say anything that you want to say to people about evangelism, about the state of the world. What one message do you want to leave with everybody that's watching this or listening to this?
Please get along with each other. I'm almost at the point where I'm ready to just take a couple weeks off of Facebook, because it hurts me so much to see Christians at each other's throats.
Yeah.
I get it that, if you are a very, very conservative Republican, mm-hmm. or, you are a Christian that voted for Obama, I get it that there are ideological things that do frustrate us. Mm-hmm. There are people that they just bristle at the very notion of President Trump. And there are also people that bristle at the very notion that they can't even, just saying the phrase Black Lives Matter would make them go,
yeah,
black. Okay, I can get it out. I'm friends with the full spectrum. I am personally a very moderate person politically. I don't tend to take a lot of strong political opinions, because you only get so much time in your life where people will listen to you. Yeah. You only get to preach so many sermons before they stop listening. Mm-hmm. You only get to post so many things on Facebook before mm-hmm. you've used up your free credits with people and they start rolling their eyes and scrolling past whatever you post. Yeah. And so my advice is, use that really, really judiciously. Use it really well. If you're going to say something, say one thing that is really, really loving and powerful and impactful, than saying something every single day that's just going to get people to start rolling their eyes and scrolling past your posts on Facebook. Yeah. If you're going to have a conversation about really, really meaningful, powerful things, make it a really good conversation. Yeah. Keep anger out of it. Just make it a really good conversation. And if you can, don't talk about it on Facebook. Talk about it face to face, right? Meet with people, talk to people, because I'll tell you what, there are things that I've seen people post on Facebook that I know for a fact they would never say it that way to a person's face. Yeah. If you were actually sitting with someone drinking a cup of coffee, I know for a fact you never would have said it that rudely or bluntly. That when you are with someone, you tend to be much kinder when you're face to face, because you can see their reaction, their facial expressions. You feel the energy in a room. Just don't say things on Facebook that you probably wouldn't say to a person's face if you were drinking a cup of coffee with them. In Romans chapter 14, and I get that this is talking about eating meat sacrificed to idols and Jewish holidays and that sort of thing. But in Romans chapter 14, it says there in verse 15, if because of food your brother is hurt, you're no longer walking according to love. Mm-hmm. Don't destroy with your food him for whom Christ died. Therefore, do not let what is for you a good thing be spoken of as evil. And whether that's a political movement or a social movement that you really feel passionate about, or if it's Chick-fil-A versus Taco Bell, the full spectrum of things that are truly important versus things that are really not that big of a deal, whatever it is, make sure that when you talk about it, you're building up your brothers and sisters in Christ. Yeah. And he goes on to say, the kingdom in verse 17, the kingdom is not eating and drinking, it's righteousness and it's peace and it's joy in the Holy Spirit. He goes on to say in verse 19, let us pursue the things which make for peace and the building up of one another. And so I'm absolutely not discouraging people from speaking out. If you are passionate about something, then speak out. Say what you need to say. But just make sure, like I said, if you're going to say something, you only get so many times where you get to say something and people will listen before their ears turn off and they quit listening. So just make sure that what you're saying is really, really powerful and is maximizing your opportunities. Yeah.
Strong stuff. Couldn't agree more. I appreciate it, Ryan. Thank you for spending some time with us. I'll let you go.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Brady. Appreciate you, man. Have
Yeah.
a good day, okay?
All right, you too.